Well, hello and welcome to Mistakes Were Made. As you probably gathered from the title of this video, we are not doing our standard budget with me, budget recap, or cash envelope stuffing. Instead, we're going to kind of look backwards a little bit and discuss how did we get ourselves into this position. Obviously not the job loss piece, but the debt, credit card debt position, and what have we done so far to get ourselves out of it. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is there was a comment on one of our more recent videos where somebody basically asked that question. It was, and I'm paraphrasing here, so it's not probably going to be the exact same wording, was what did you spend your credit card debt on, and what lifestyle changes have you made to see the progress that you've seen? And that question really struck me, and it was something that I was interested in kind of delving deeper into, and I thought it might make for an interesting video. I guess we will find out. So I would say when you look at where we are right now, the fact that we are in a position to cover the budget that we have created, which currently is $5,900 a month, and are still able to have anywhere from $500 to $2,000 extra dollars a month, a pay period, in extra money that is not already assigned to a specific job. It is easy to have the question of, well, if you're in that position now, what on earth were you spending money on before to create debt? And I think the first thing to kind of make clear, and I will get a little bit deeper into the numbers piece of it, is where we are now is a far cry from where we were a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and further. And the debt that we are currently paying down is not just new debt. This is debt that we have been accruing for multiple years. It's been a cycle of debt. So yes, there are certainly newer things that have been charged to our credit cards before we started this process, but I don't think we've ever brought any of our credit cards down to zero and then started over again, which is a scary thought. But I would say we've probably, over the 10 plus years, I have to imagine that we've paid enough to bring the balances down to zero. It's just the problem was we kept spending. So, we never really saw that reduction. So, anyway, let's get into the nitty gritty. What did we typically spend our money on? And I don't know that we really spent it on anything that was out of the ordinary. To me, it's things that basically anybody would be spending money on. We had situations where, we needed to get new furniture, and those costs were pretty high, $1,000, $800, whatever. We bought new TVs at different times, and those were expensive as well. We had vet bills. We had health care bills. I ended up going to the emergency a few years back, and unfortunately the cost of that was more than what the insurance would pay and more than I had saved in my HSA. So, credit cards were used for that. I'm trying to think. We talked about it during our garden tour, that garden expansion. A lot of that went onto credit cards. Other updates and fixes for the house. If we had to call somebody to bring them in to repair something, 9 times out of 10, that went on the credit card. And so we weren't, buying jet skis and going on yachts or having lavish vacations or anything like that. I think the things we were purchasing were pretty benign, but the problem is we did not have a mindset of saving up for things. We did not see our usage of credit cards as a problem. We looked at it as an extension of our own money, even though it clearly wasn't. It's the credit card banks and the bank's money. But that's not how we looked at it. And some of the time we would choose to use the credit card, even though we had the money for the purchase in our bank account. We liked to maintain an amount of money in the checking account. I did not like to see that balance go below $500, but most of the time we kept a couple thousand in there. And so there may be would be a decision made of, here's this thing that we want to purchase. We have the money for it, but it's going to be quite a hit to the checking account. Let's just put it on the credit card. We would really spend money on wasteful things, going out to eat multiple times a month, going to fast food places multiple times a week for lunch instead of bringing lunch to work or bringing food for whatever endeavor we were doing. We had very, very poor impulse control. If there was something that we decided we wanted, we would just go buy it. And I think, as we look back and kind of try and understand where we were back then, because I don't know if I can explain it clearly enough to highlight just how much we did not pay attention to our finances. I mean, we knew how much was in our checking account. We knew that we had balances of debt on credit cards. So it wasn't that, we had absolutely no idea about anything financial that we were dealing with. We knew how much money we were bringing in from our income, things like that, but we did not have discussions about our finances. If there was something a person wanted to purchase, they would go and purchase it, whether it was using the checking account to pay for it or using a credit card to pay for it. And we didn't discuss those purchases, even if they were $100, $200, $300. If it was something big, like the couch or furniture that I was talking about, then we were usually together and making those decisions at that point. So it wasn't a surprise and suddenly there's a couch showing up in the house, but we did not have regular conversations about our spending, about how we were using our money or anything like that. And, because we didn't really talk about it, it's kind of hard to really say what our mindset was at the time. So some of it is just inferring things. Some of it is discussions that we've had more recently about, not necessarily what we were thinking at the time, because honestly, we weren't thinking. It was a blank space, where finances are concerned. It was not at the top of our mind. We didn't feel like the lifestyle we were living was anything out of the ordinary. It wasn't anything to be concerned about. We were not making the money that we are making now, but we still had a decent income. We did have more draws on our money than we do now because our mortgage payment was higher. We only recently refinanced and was able to refinance at a lower interest rate. So, that cost is lower than it used to be. We had, excuse me, my car payment. We didn't finally pay that off until I want to say early in 2023. So there were various things that were just standard costs that I'll call them standard costs, not related to us spending like nincompoops, that had a call on our money. But we still had cash flow. It just wasn't at the level that it is right now. But at the same time, it was nothing to us to utilize credit. And even though it should have been a red flag to us to not want to make a purchase using our checking account, our bank account money, and to put it on credit card, it wasn't. It did not give us any pause. And we felt, because our income was, decent. We were not rich. We are currently not rich by any stretch of our imagination. To me, rich is you're bringing in $200,000, $300,000, a year, and we are not doing that. But at the same time, being financially secure and financially set to us meant you didn't have to worry about making purchases. If there was something you wanted, you could just go and buy it. You could afford it. That meant, you were financially secure. And that was something that we wanted to be. And that's how we kind of defined it. But of course, if we had been making those purchases out of our checking account, sure, then yes, we could actually claim, yeah, we are financially secure. We can afford the lifestyle we are living. But we weren't doing that. We were augmenting by using credit cards. But again, we didn't see it as that didn't mean we weren't upholding our lifestyle appropriately. Every month we would pay our standard bills just fine. Every month we would pay our mortgage and a little bit extra onto the principal. Every month we would pay our credit card debt, and it was well over the minimum payment, sometimes $200-$300 more. We didn't have anybody knocking on our door, calling us, indicating we owed somebody money. We had money in the bank, and a good chunk of it, just kind of sitting in the account. So we took that as a sign that we were doing well, that we had a handle on our finances. But obviously that was not true. And a lot of the things that we would purchase beyond, the more, higher cost things, it was basically, a death by 1,000 cuts. Just those little frivolous purchases, things that didn't have any real value to us. A lot of times there would be nothing to show for the purchase afterwards, or even a few months later. There would be things that on a whim or on a want, we would buy it because, it struck our fancy. We didn't need it. It wasn't something that improved our lives necessarily, outside of that momentary feel of, oh, here's this new thing. And then, 6 months down the road, a year down the road, it's probably in a bag going to Goodwill, because we didn't have any use for it. We hadn't used it. We needed to make room because, things were getting cluttered. So it's really kind of hard for me to kind of explain or describe what we spent our money on, because it just was so non-essential. There was nothing impactful in general that we spent the money on. It trickled through our fingers. And the sad thing about it is it did not register. We had really no good idea of just how much money we were spending every month. And again, because all of the bases felt like they were covered, there were no red flags for us to be concerned about our spending. We were blithely going through life thinking, we got this down. We've got good jobs. We are able to spend, how we want to spend. We're, on top of things. So delusional. So delusional. So, I wish I could, run down a list of here are all the things that we spent to get ourselves into, bajillion dollars worth of debt. However, I cannot, because 9 times out of 10, we even, 2 days later probably couldn't point to, oh, what did you spend this money on? So yeah, it boggles my mind now to think of where we could be today if we had been more financially aware and more financially responsible than we obviously were. Again, we were not making the same level of money that we are making now, as we were running these debts up, but there was still extra money there, and we could have been better stewards of that, but instead we were very much living in the moment, living in the day, taking that gratification right away instead of thinking about the future. The future, I mean, we would obviously think about the future. Hey, someday we need to be retired and, blah, blah, blah. But we didn't think about the future. It was this nebulous thing way out that, that's numbers of years from now. And it was almost like we figured we would just live this lifestyle till we die, The thought that something could come up and erase the good times didn't ever cross our minds. We were maybe naive in that. I don't know if it was a willful ignorance, if it was just a inability or I don't know, us purposefully not wanting to think about the future because then, we have to be more responsible. I don't know. I can't reconcile the relationship that we had with money even just a year ago to all the stuff that we've learned now and the things that we are putting in place and the way we are going about life today. It really is night and day. So, that's I feel like it's been a very vague explanation of how we got into debt because I can't point to specific purchases, but at least the mindset, we felt like we were in control of our finances. We felt that the income that we had, though, again, we would not consider ourselves rich. We felt we were secure and we felt justified in the purchases that we were making, that we were allowed to, or we had earned the ability to just go and buy things that we wanted to buy when we wanted to buy them. We were adults. I mean, we weren't acting like adults, but no, we were adults. We can spend our money how we want to spend it. And because on the surface, we were covering all of our costs and everything as far as paying our bills on time, et cetera, et cetera. There was no reason, nothing came to put a halt to that thought process. So I don't know if any of that is relatable. I don't know. Because now, today, I just feel like we were the biggest goobery losers. So dumb, so full of ourselves. And it's not that we were living a lifestyle in an effort to impress anybody or to show off or act superior to anybody. We're very insular people. We're each other's best friends. We don't really go out, so it wasn't a keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe we were trying to fill a void with the lack of social interaction, because we are both very, very introverted. You probably may not believe that because, here I have a YouTube channel. So maybe we were trying to fill something with the purchasing and proving to ourselves that we had a level of a lifestyle that we were wanting to portray or entertain or have, just a level that we felt would be comfortable. And this is how we can show that we're comfortable, is by being able to buy stuff whenever we want to, which we obviously couldn't because we use credit cards in order to maintain that. So anyway, on to the next question, which was, what lifestyle changes have we made in order to have the progress that we are making today? First and foremost, I think we need to talk about the income. As I mentioned, we were not making the level of income previously that we are now. And what I did, after I saw this question, I was curious. I was like, okay, well, let's do a comparison to see, what does this year look like against last year and the year before. So I went on to our checking account banking app, and I looked at the last full month that we just finished, which was June of 2024. So we'll do that, June of 2024. And then I went and I looked at June of 2023. And unfortunately, I couldn't go back to June of 2022. It didn't go back that far. So I looked at the next available, and that was August of 2022. Now, our income tends to be fairly even. And so the numbers for August of 2022, I feel pretty confident that they would be very similar to what June of 2022 would be, maybe off by $100 or something like that. But in August of 2022, between Mr. M's take-home pay and my take-home pay for that month, we had a total income of $5,464.97. Similarly, for June of 2023, so just last year, we had a total income for that month of $6,138.69. So we're already seeing that there's been an increase. This past month, this year, June 2024, the total income between me and Mr. M's paychecks was $8,918.63. So when we're talking about our ability to pay off debt, first and foremost, when the word about the job came down and we had our panic session, and then we tried to figure out, what the heck are we going to do next? Because we were not at all prepared. We had put ourselves in this terrible, terrible position to not be prepared. And now we were reaping the effects of that. Our first thing was we listed all of the stuff that we had spent money on, looked for patterns, things that we needed to continue spending money on a monthly basis, our utilities, our mortgage, groceries, things like that. We listed everything. We categorized it. Was it entertainment? Was it dining out? Was it grocery? Was it utility? Was it a subscription of some sort? All of that. And then we gave it a priority. And anything that was a priority 3, out the door. We're not spending money on it. Anything that was a priority 2, we had to go and take a look. Is this something that we truly need for quality of life, or is it something that we are willing to let go, at least temporarily, while we're going through this stuff? Some things we kept, some things we didn't. And then, of course, priority 1 was the essentials, home, food, transportation, all of that. In that, we then also had to determine debt. How are we paying our debt? Because that piece of things did not include the debt part. We determined what our minimum payments were that were required by the credit card companies, and then we created a new minimum. What would be the minimum we were willing to pay? Because, I don't like to just pay the minimum. And so between that, we ended up creating a budget. And in that whittling down of things, even when we added in the cost of paying a little bit more than the minimums for the debt and creating a new kind of debt minimum, just in that process, we were able to find extra money in the budget. The problem, I think one of the other problems that we had when we were, living a lifestyle we couldn't afford, was that our money had no job. Yes, we had debts, and yes, we had bills that we had to pay, but we just paid them. It wasn't a process. There wasn't a plan. There wasn't a budget. And any money that was left over, it also had no job. And so it was kind of up for grabs. It was a free-for-all. Well, once we determined what our budget was now, we also understood that we may have some money left over after we've addressed all of our must-pay-fors, but we do not have the luxury to then just spend that willy-nilly, because my job is going to go away. There is going to be a gap between what our budget costs and how much money we have to pay it. So our immediate next goal was, we have to figure out, what does that gap look like? How long do we think that we're going to need to cover that gap? And thus was born our job loss cushion. Now, we knew that amount, which we decided 6 months, seemed reasonable. And when we did the math of 6 months times the job discrepancy, or the income discrepancy, I believe the total ended up being $16,800 or something like that. We knew part of that was going to be covered by my severance, and part of it was going to be covered by the PTO. So 2 things arose from determining that. One, which I guess kind of counts as a lifestyle change, is no more time off. I did not feel comfortable taking time off, because every day that I took time off was another $100 and something, $200 less that I would get once the job was gone. The other piece was looking at how we can increase our take-home pay from what currently was. Now, Mr. M, he reduced his 401k contributions by, it was either by half or by 2/3. So that meant his take home pay ended up increasing. I didn't see any benefit in contributing to my 401k any longer, because at this point I'm thinking, okay, well, we haven't actually been let go in our department yet, but it's going to be a couple of months, and then we're going to follow suit like the other 30,000 people that lost their jobs. So it didn't make sense for me to continue paying into the 401k. So there we had another boost in take home pay, because we were not taking that money wasn't being taken out. Surprisingly, in October, for the folks that were still remaining, they did a raise. Now that was around the timing of our normal cost of living raises, but I was still kind of shocked because we were in bankruptcy. Who would have thought that they would be giving raises? But they did, and that raise that I received was a 5% raise, which right there is higher than normal. We usually get between 2 and 3%. The job continued, and as we are seeing an increasing our take-home pay, and thus increasing the amount of money that is left over after we have covered the budget, we know we need to be putting that money to the cushion, so that's where that money is going. We're not tackling debt beyond what we have already included in our budget as just our standard payments. We needed to secure that job loss cushion. So every extra bit of money is going to that. Because we recognized that we did have impulse control problems, we did have previously had problems with utilizing our credit cards improperly, and just spending willy-nilly without a plan, we decided to make certain categories cash envelopes: groceries, dining out, and entertainment. And the thought process behind that was, if it's in cash, then you have a limiter, a physical limiter there to tell you how much you can spend. So instead of being in the situation of before where there really was sky's the limit, there was nothing in general to make us think about a purchase before we made it. Now we had something saying, okay, you have $100 this week for groceries. So now you've got to decide, what are going to be your priorities for grocery shopping this week? What things are you going to buy? What things are you going to leave behind? Same thing for dining out or entertainment. You could go and spend the entirety of that money that we've allocated, cash-wise, early on in the month, but then that means you're done for the rest of the month. Now, of course, there's nothing forcing us to stay within those limits. We would still bring our debit card with us. So if we happen to spend more, we could just as easily pull the debit card out and swipe it. And on the one hand, that's good because we're not grabbing a credit card and creating debt to swipe it. But it meant we had to be dedicated. We had to be disciplined and not go outside of the strictures that we had made. And for those first couple of months, that was kind of difficult. We were having to break habits. We were having to create new relationships with spending money. But at the same time, even though that was really kind of a cold turkey scenario, it really was. We created the budget and we said, look, this is what we can spend. We cannot spend anything more than that. Credit cards, we are not putting anything on credit cards ever again, at least not while we're dealing with this situation. It's done. And so I consider that kind of a cold turkey situation. And I don't know that that's helpful for anybody looking for tips and tricks on how to make that transition, but I think we felt that there really wasn't any choice. I mean, yeah, we could do the debit card thing, but we recognized we were just hurting ourselves because the less money we have at the end of paying all of our bills, the less money we have to put into a cushion for when there is no income. And that weighed very, very heavily on us. And that, I think, reinforced those rules that we put in place for ourselves. So fast forward to February, we have been very diligent about all extra money is going to saving up for the job loss cushion. We are doing what I felt was a very good job staying within our requirements. I mean, there were times that we would go over here and there, but we weren't using credit cards and we weren't going over in significant amounts. It's a few dollars here, a few dollars there. Well, come February, we met that savings goal. And so we were able to switch gears and start dealing with debt. Now, one of the reasons why we did not start with debt in the first place is I can't pay my mortgage with my debt reduction. We can't pay our light bill or buy groceries with our debt reduction unless we use that reduced amount of debt to spend more on credit cards and increase that debt. But the bank is not going to look kindly on me saying, hey, we don't have a second income, so we can't pay you. But hey, look, I got my Bank of America card down by $500. Yay. They're not going to be super excited about that. So that's why savings ended up being the first stop. And then once we hit the goal that we made, then we could focus on debt. And we had been, up to this point, incredibly lucky because the job continued. We would not be making the progress that we made had the job not continued. So February comes, we're now focusing on debt, and then a miracle comes through, and that is our tax refund. This tax refund was an amount that I don't anticipate we'll see ever again. It was definitely not one we were expecting before we did our taxes, and it was the largest tax refund we have ever had. It was $7,800 and something dollars. And that put us at a bit of a crossroads because a lot of the videos that I had been watching around that time and just talking with people in general about, how they use their tax refund, I noticed that often there would be a deviation from what the overall budget plan had been previously. This is extra money. It doesn't have to do with, the income that you're bringing in. So it can kind of look like it's an off the books amount of money, whatever that dollar amount is. And so I was noticing, people were using it for purchases that they had put off or to go on vacation, to fix things around their house, using it for things that avoided them using credit cards. So, that's good. But for us, that just didn't seem like the proper thing to do. And this is not a judgment on how people decide to use their money. That's those people's business. But for us, we talked about it. We were like, hey, should we? I mean, this is a lot of money. Should we bulk up our emergency fund, which was, just around $1,100 and something dollars? Should we pay for some of these longer term goal items that are a little bit more costly that we haven't had the money to be able to afford to do? Should we take a break? We'd been at this new process for 4 months at that point, 4 or 5 months. There was the thought of doing like some other people do and actually take a vacation and use the money so that we're doing it debt free. But in the end, we decided it was much more important that we stick to what our goals were. And in this case, it was now reducing our debt, because we looked at it as, as wonderful as it would be to go on a nice vacation, as wonderful as it would be to be able to achieve some of the longer term goals that we have, a list of 20 items that we would like to do or have, or, whatever. That is stuff that can come later. This is a golden opportunity for us to make a huge impact on our debt, one that we're probably not going to have. And if we use this properly, then it's going to catapult us, that much closer to our ultimate goal. So we did. I don't know what the percentage is, 90%, 80%, I don't know. But we put $6,760 something towards debt out of the 7,800 and something. Was it 6,700? Yeah. Something along those lines. We did 6,000 towards our Bank of America. We did 750 towards the loan from my mom, and I think it was like $11 towards Discover. We did put $1,000 to our job loss cushion, and then the one major deviation was we put $100 towards the recliner fund. But the bulk of the money went to our main goal, debt reduction. And so that right there is that discipline. We could have done a lot of stuff with that money, and we would have enjoyed doing a lot of different things than what we did. But instead, we did the very dry, the very boring act of bringing our debt down. And the end result of that was we paid off the mom loan completely with that last $750. We put ourselves in a position to be able to pay off the Bank of America card by the end of that month, the end of March, because we did make such a large payment. We were then able to snowball the previous payments we were making for those two debts onto our new target, which was the Citi card, and now be at a position where we were paying $800 every month rather than the $100 we were paying to it before. So that decision to stay true to our goals really had a huge impact. And that is still true even today with the extra money that we have once our budget is covered. Every single pay period, we have that opportunity to stray from our ultimate goal. We are bringing our debt down just because of the snowball effect and the standard amount of debt repayment we have in our budget. Every month we are putting a total of $1,226 now towards debt. Over time, we will eventually bring our debt down to zero. But because of where we are now, because Mr. M got a 15% raise, because I got promoted in May and with it came a 15% raise, because the company that I work for had to renegotiate the health care, and they made the decision to fully fund it so that we do not have to have premiums taken out of our paycheck. And because I decided to stop funding my HSA at the beginning, once the new healthcare came into place, because again, I was thinking, well, we're not going to be here very long. All of those things, plus the things we did prior to that to bulk up our take home, has culminated in an amount in general that we get on a monthly basis. And this is not including any income that we get from Etsy, or bonuses on the side, usually from Mr. M's work. But just our general income, it has put us in a position to have significant amounts of money after we have covered all of our costs. Far more than we had back in 2022 and earlier, far more than we even had just last year. But that money, our time is limited with that. The opportunity that this is providing us, it's not going to be around forever. I don't know if it's going to be even around after next month. And so the fact of the situation that we are in is a huge motivator in keeping us disciplined. The knowledge that this benefit is going to run out at some point, and our debt reduction progress is going to drop very quickly and slow down very rapidly, is very much on our minds. And that is what another thing that is helping us to kind of stay true to the path that we have, because we want to take advantage of this situation for as long as it lasts, and we want to take full advantage of it. We do not want to look back and say, oh gosh, if only in August we hadn't decided to take $1,000 and go do X, Y, or Z, because we could have had our debt knocked down just $1,000 more. We recognize if we can get our debt down 100%, obviously the ripple effect of that goes into how much I need to bring in each month for my pay, and thus how much per hour I need my new job to be. So it opens up more opportunities for me if I'm not able to find a higher paying job, because I'll be honest, I do not have any confidence about the future. I really don't. And it weighs on my mind. I do not anticipate that I'm going to be able to find a job that replaces the income that I am making right now. And so I already know that our debt journey is going to be impeded by that. I really, really hope that I'm able to find a job, secure a job that pays, $24 or more an hour, but I have no confidence. I really don't. And that's not to say it's a bad thing to be paid less than that. I am purely looking at what are our debt and goal financial needs. And if I can secure a job that pays $24 or more an hour, that is going to put us in a much better position to have money left over at the end of the month or at the end of the pay periods than a job that's going to pay $15 to $18 an hour, which might still have a little bit left over at the end of the month. I would have to go and look at my calculations, but it's definitely not going to be a situation like this. So obviously I want to put myself and our family in the best situation we can, as far as, what my wage ends up being. But like I said, I really have no confidence about the future. I'm going to start developing ulcers again with how much I worry about it. But that is more and more fuel to our fire and to our motivation to make sure we are taking as much advantage of this income while it still lasts. And unfortunately, again, that's not really any tips or tricks that I can suggest to people in a similar situation who are trying to bring their debt down. We're running on fear. That's my tip and trick, is to be so afraid of what the future is going to hold that we are going to suck every last bit of life out of the situation we are in. And oh my God, is that depressing? But that is where we are. That is what is fueling our success. The fact that financial blessings have come through and we are doing our darndest to use them to their fullest, not waste the opportunity that we have been given, and the fact that we have opened our eyes and realized what idiots we were in the past. We cannot change the past. We can look back and lament, and we can look back and be like, how could we be so blind and so full of ourselves and just so internally smug to think that we were living a lifestyle that was real. But, you know, as much as I do beat myself up for, you know, what we were before, it doesn't change anything. And so I can only hope that we have truly learned the lessons of the past, and that what we're putting in place now, we continue in the future, even after I get my new job, whenever that may be, and we can just continue to see progress, even if it is at a slower pace than what we're seeing right now. So once again, it was another long video. Just a lot of me blabbering on. I do hope there was something of interest for people to take from it, even if it was just an opportunity to say, wow, those people have problems. Because boy, oh boy, did we. And, you know, we're not perfect. We have our struggles, and not all of them are easily visible just in the videos that I'm putting out, but we're doing our best. We're doing our best, and we're trying to honor the opportunities that we currently have. So on that note, I'd want to say thank you, especially if you made it to the end. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any feedback, if you have suggestions, if you have more questions about this or anything else, please note those down below. If you wouldn't mind and you've been interested in our journey, whether you're new or you've come back and have seen a few of our videos, please consider subscribing. I think we are almost at 850 subscribers, which is woohoo! But anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Again, thank you, and we'll see you in the next one.